So you have a 2-hour tape that was done on...
for Veterans Day a number of years ago, like 5 years.
That was PBS, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I think I saw that, actually.
Well, they had some clips, but I have the full.
Ah.
Yeah. And Jeffrey said, I learned stuff I didn't know.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's going to learn something you don't know, too. I guarantee you we'll find some stuff. Yeah. So we're actually started the podcast.
Good.
I have Anne Gartner on. I've known Annie for a very long time.
Yep.
Probably like 20 years, maybe. Since you've been here.
When we first moved here in 19 years ago in July.
Yeah, so right about that.
Up at the old studio.
Yeah.
On Tankerverde.
Yep.
And when they didn't have the road that went through.
And I'll point out that she's got, put your arm out, put it up like this, Anne, so people are actually looking at this Louis LeMay. She has Louis LeMay earrings on and Patania piece. Yeah, Sam Patania piece. So she has a great collection of jewelry and other things. She's an art collector. So, but the reason I wanted Anne on was not just the art collecting, which is important as part of what we do on the Art Dealer Diaries, is talk to people in different things, art dealers, art collectors, artists, whatever. But you've got this very unique, interesting story that really fits into what I've always found as a theme that runs through a lot of my podcasts, which I'm interested in, is the Vietnam War.
Okay.
Because to me, that was a seminal moment in our generation's everything.
Yep.
Right? I don't care what it was. It affected us, good, bad, and, I don't even think there is an indifference. If you had somebody who was aged that could go to Vietnam, you were concerned, and so, and you fit right into that groove, because I think you joined the military 67 or 68.
I was commissioned in November 67.
Yeah.
And I went to OCS in December. Yeah. The last day of December of 67. Right. And our class started in January of 68.
Yeah. And so you're going to end up in Vietnam right in time for the Tet Offensive.
Nope.
You missed it?
I missed it.
Okay.
I was commissioned because coming in with an RN, you didn't have to go through OCS like the line officers.
Right.
We came in commissioned, so therefore we went to a month-long knife and fork school, basically.
It's what I did, too.
Yeah,
It's probably the same thing.
Yeah.
About a month.
We learned how to march, and we learned how to do all that
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was stationed, my first duty station was Corpus Christi, Texas, and I arrived there after about almost a month off, because you get time off before you go to your first duty station. And I arrived there, and one of the nurses came and picked me up at the airport and took me to the bachelor officer quarters where I was staying. And then the next day I started in as an ensign. And one of the pictures that I gave you was the official photograph as an ensign.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember being an ensign.
Yeah. And I was there for a little less than a year, around a year. Yeah. But some of the nurses that were coming back from overseas were coming back from the repose. And we had 2 or 3 nurses that talked about being on a hospital ship and being in the Vietnam War. And I said, wow, that sounds like a lot of interesting nursing and an opportunity to see something besides, the United States.
So at 67 is when you joined.
Right.
Right. So let's just back it up a little bit. You graduate from nursing
school in August of 67.
So, there was a lot of stuff going down at that time.
Oh, yeah.
What was your opinion of the war at that point?
I really didn't have an opinion. I was working at Lakewood Community Hospital in the PACU, and one of the nurses was an Army nurse that had just come back from Vietnam. So she talked about what it was like. She was in country. Being on the ship, you're on the ship.
Right.
But being in country was a lot different. And because I was going in the military, when we went down to take our state boards, they segregated anybody that had to have their tests scored by hand in order to move them forward. So I had to sit by myself. Everybody else in my class was all the back. And it was like October we went in to have do our tests. And towards the end of October, I got a call, and the charge nurse said, "Your mom's on the phone. You better go talk to her." I said, "Oh, what's going on?" And so my mom says, "Anne, I have news." "Well, what kind of news?" She said, "You can write RN after your name on your charting."
Right.
So I had passed,
Right.
and then I could be commissioned, but I couldn't be commissioned before
Yeah.
So
I remember all that as well.
Yeah. So then I got commissioned, and then I got my date to actually go into the Navy, which was the end of December.
Did you have any second thoughts about that? I mean,
no.
You just said, "No, this will do this," and I mean, because you knew that you could end up in Vietnam.
Not really. I just wanted to have an adventure.
Yeah,
I wanted to
about that.
I wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
My mother was a nurse. She graduated from the same nursing school that I went to.
Yes.
30 some years before. And she regretted that she didn't have an opportunity to do a lot of other things.
I see.
She was a industrial nurse for a while, and then she worked in the hospital in the emergency room. So I said, why not? Why not try something? And the only reason I went in the Navy is because I didn't like the Army's uniform, and I didn't like the Air Force uniform. And
it's true.
Yeah. And my dentist sister was the recruiter.
Yeah.
Dr. Pampish's sister. She was a lieutenant commander. She was the recruiter for the district that I was in. And so she came in and talked to us. And I said, "I think I want to go in the Navy." So that's how I got into the Navy.
They have those cute uniforms, white and...
No. It was the dress blues.
Oh, you like the dress?
Oh, the dress blue.
I got married in my dress blues.
So. Oh yeah, it's a beautiful uniform. It's a beautiful uniform.
I don't need a tux. I'll use this. This is fine.
Exactly. So then off I went to my first duty station, and I was fortunate when I got there. I was mentored by a nurse that became one of my best friends. She was a lieutenant.
Yeah.
And she helped me through all the different things that you need to know in the Navy, and what to do and what not to do.
Yes. So, was this in Corpus Christi that you met this?
Yeah. And my first ward that I went on to when I got to Corpus Christi was the lock psych ward.
Yeah.
And that was not my area. Yeah. I did not like psych.
I did that as an orderly in college, and I didn't care for it.
I didn't like the lock wards in nursing school, and I sure as heck didn't like it.
Yeah. It's very difficult.
Yeah. So I went up to the chief nurse's office and said, "Is there any other place that I could go?" "Well, we need somebody on PMs and nights." I said, "I'll take it."
Yeah.
And
you're like 20 years old.
I was 19 at the time when I went, just turned 19, and then I turned 20 the first year I was in the Navy.
And we have to preface, when you're doing all this, there wasn't a lot of options for women. People don't realize this. No. I mean, what are your options?
Secretary.
Yep.
Get married.
Yep.
Teacher.
Yep. Nurse.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of options.
No, it's true. I mean, we don't think about it now. It seems almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, and if you had those options when you were younger, do you think you might have, because we know you do some other things later on, but do you think you would have picked a different field?
No, I wanted to follow in my mother's footsteps because I think she really taught me to care for people and to really give back.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the only funny thing was when I was in nursing school, because my mother worked in the ER, that was the only rotation I did not do.
The ER, because you didn't want to be...
Yes.
You didn't want her to be telling you what to do as a...
No, it's just, I did an OR tour rotation, which a lot of other people didn't. And that's what turned out to be my love in the Navy was the OR. Yes. I like the OR. So, yes. And it was funny because when I was going to high school, my sister Helen was a year ahead of me. So I was Helen's sister. Then I went to nursing school and I was Mickey's daughter. Yes. And so I thought, I think I need to have my own persona.
Yeah, your own identity.
So that's why, I chose to go in the military.
Yeah, I get it. And what did your older sister do?
My sister, she was very, very smart. She's brilliant. She went into the convent after high school. And she went all the way through to final profession. And she was in the convent for almost 20 years, and decided when the older nuns were not treating her well, because when you have somebody that's very young, it's very difficult. So she got out, and then she went back to school, and she went in and got a bachelor's, a master's, and then a doctorate in teaching arts. And she taught at college, and she taught all of the ologies. Then she went and got a sabbatical at the Air Force Academy for a year. And then they asked her to stay on, and she stayed at the Air Force Academy teaching the cadets in all of the different biology areas, and retired after 19 years. So she
had two careers.
She had two careers.
Yeah, religious and teaching. And do you have any other?
Yes, I have my brother, my baby brother, who's 6'4", and John, and he was he went to school and became an embalmer and a director for a funeral home. And so we figured it out. My sister would pray for him, I'd take care of him, and my brother would bury him.
And your mom could take care of him.
And my mom could take care of him, yes.
Yeah. And so where did you grow
up? In Cleveland, Ohio, Lakewood, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland.
Yes.
It's a, wonderful place.
Yes.
I loved all the time I spent there, but it was time to move on. And so I was glad to. And now when I go back, and I haven't been back in a number of years, everything seems so much smaller. All the streets are so small. The houses are small. It's just, yeah.
Were you interested in art at all when you were growing up as a kid?
Yes, I was. I took a class at one of the junior high schools, drawing class. And I would keep a pad, and I would do all these drawings, and I would color them with pencils, and I had a whole ream of this stuff. I doodled all the time. And it was just something, but I didn't take it with me when I went into the military. I kind of left that behind. So,
but even in college, in high school, were you doing it? Not college, high school?
Some, but it wasn't as much as I did when I was in junior high. So
it was innately there.
It was, and I liked going to places where there was art and things to see.
Because you love that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you've been presidents of the Western Art.
No, I haven't. Jeffrey was president.
Sorry, Jeffrey was president, but you did.
I've done
multiple things.
Yes. In the art area, but
and your husband, who we'll talk a little bit about, is very much art. Too.
Oh yes,
very much. He probably could have been an art.
Well, it was interesting. We did not start really collecting until my friend came out from the East Coast, and we went to Monterey because we lived in California. We went to Monterey, and we went to one of the art galleries, and we bought our first piece of artwork. It was a Jackie Lewis Bowker. She did landscapes, and we have that painting today. It's a California, flowers and scene, and that's what started us. And it wasn't until I was during Desert Shield, Desert Storm that we started to buy more and more art. And living in California, we mostly went to a lot of different art galleries in Monterey and Pacific Grove and all those different places. We go up and go to not artist studios, but galleries and people's homes. And so we started collecting.
Yes.
And by the time we came to Tucson, we had a very nice collection of second-tier California art.
Yes, and a lot of it was deceased work.
Deceased, yes.
Probably most of it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Jackie Lewis was the only one that was still living at the time.
So you grow up, and it was Cleveland, right?
Lakewood, which is a suburb.
You go and you get your degree, and then you go right into the Navy. You join the Navy. You go to Texas for your first one.
Right.
And then, so this is again 67, 68.
It was 68, right.
And so and then you tried to find your way to the war, right?
Well, that's the interesting part. The nurses that came back from the repose said that was the greatest experience they'd ever had.
And that's the ship.
There are the two hospital ships. There was the U.S. USS Repose
Yes.
and the USS Sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
They came back from the Repose, and I said, well, how do I get to go there? And so
looking for adventure.
So I went to my mentor, Claire Ann, and I said, how do I do this? She said, you go up to the administrative office and you ask to put in your dream sheet.
Yes.
And your dream sheet tells you where you want to go.
I remember this.
Yeah. So
never got anything on my dream sheet.
I got lots that I would put on my dream sheet. So I went up there, and the people in the admin office were hospital corpsmen too. They worked in every area of the hospital. So anyhow, I went up and I said, I want to fill out my dream sheet. I want to go to one of the 2 hospital ships. And he said, okay, fill it out and sign your name. And so the next month I came up and put it down and signed my name. He said, it'd be a lot easier if you just sign your name, put it down, and every month I'll put in a dream sheet. So one night I was working, I guess it was evening shift, and I got a call from the admin clerk that was on duty, and he said, we just got a set of speed orders that you're going to Vietnam. And I got the Sanctuary. So that was very quick. It was 10 or 11 months, and off I was going. So then,
and you were excited about that.
Oh, I was very excited about it. And one of the people that was also there, Sue Purgy, who became one of my best friends, she got orders. So the 2 of us were going. So she was going a little later than I was, but we were going. So
same ship.
Yeah. So by the time I got ready to leave Corpus Christi to go to Vietnam, Claire Ann had been accepted in nurse anesthesia school back in Washington, D.C. So she said, why don't you come out and spend some time with me? I'm going to be, studying and everything, but come spend some time with me. She lived in the Watergate, and I went and spent 3 weeks with her, and she tried to prepare me for what was going to happen, because she was a seasoned lieutenant.
Right, but she had been there.
No, but she had been around in the Navy for long enough to understand what I needed to know and how to deal with issues and things like that. So just
being a woman on a ship.
Oh yeah.
In those days, especially
there were 30 of us. There were 30 women on the ship.
Yes.
And one was an MSc officer. She was a blood bank officer, and the other 29 were nurse corps officers. Yeah. That was it.
Right.
We had no men in the nurse corps at that time, so it was just women.
Right.
So off I go.
Yes.
So I come back to Ohio. I ship all my stuff over there, and I had to be out at San Bernardino to take a flight from there to Vietnam. So we get there, and in the middle of the night, they board you onto one of the contract airlines, and it was 6 seats across the aisle and another 6 seats. And you got herded in like part of the cattle, and off we go. And every 4 hours, they'd push food at you.
Yeah.
First stop was the Hawaiian Islands in Honolulu. So we were able to get off the plane, and I'd never had a Mai Tai in my life, so I had a Mai Tai at the airport.
And said, I've been in Hawaii.
That's right. And I wasn't 21 yet, but I still got my Mai Tai. So anyhow, then we got back on the plane, and then we go to Guam, and then you have to, it was like 24 hours by the time you got there.
Right.
So we land in Danang early in the morning. And because the ship was up on the northern border of Vietnam, I had to wait until I was able to get a flight out, and it was helicopter route.
Right.
So I had to stay with the nurses at the Danang Station Hospital. So they brought me down to the room, and they said, this is going to be the bunk you're staying in. Here's your flak jacket. Here's your helmet.
Did it hit you right then when you go,
oh, wait a minute.
I have to have a flak jacket and a helmet because you're in a war zone.
So anyhow, okay, I said, I'm exhausted. I go to bed, and all of a sudden, all this noise is going on. The air raid sirens are going off, and I could remember them saying, put the flak jacket and the helmet on and get under the bunk.
Yeah.
Well, at that time, women used to wear curlers to to bed at night to have your hair nice and well, you can't put a helmet on over your curlers. So I just crawled under with the helmet next to me, and I slept there until somebody came and said, "Okay, get back to bed." So that was
your first night.
That was my first night. I was there for about a day and a half, and then all of a sudden they said, "Oh, we're sending a chopper out with mail, so you can go out with the chopper."
Right.
So they
this thing keeps
okay. I'll put it over here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I said, "Oh, good." So got into my uniform, and that was the blue seersucker,
right?
And
which you loved,
which I loved, and you had your cap, and it had the same cover. But they said, "Oh, you're going to need this because you can't go flying." So they had this triangular scarf that you tied over the head and on your fore and aft cover. And so off we went. So get into the helicopter, and there are bags of mail all over. And they said, "Have a seat." So, and there was a doctor and a corpsman that were also going out to the ship. And so as we're coming out and coming in and flying into the ship, all of a sudden there are all these people out on the deck, and they're clapping, and we thought, God, they're happy to see us. No, they wanted the mail. Yeah. That's all they wanted.
I'm sure there's a few that
but
were clapping
there were three people that were very happy because they were now going to go because they were going back to the States. And it was a year tour of duty. So,
yes.
Yeah. So.
And so when you get to that ship, what was that? I mean, the first week or so, because I mean, you got incoming coming all the time, right?
No, because we were a hospital ship that had these big red crosses on them.
Yes.
So they didn't come after us.
But incoming in the sense of people being hurt and blown up and all that.
The chopper pad was never empty. Yeah. There was choppers coming in, depending if we were up at station at the border between North and South Vietnam. Choppers would be coming in all times of the day and night. That's what we ran ORs 24 hours a day. They did triage 24 hours a day. As the patients would be brought in, they had to be inspected by the master-at-arms to make sure they had no ammunition or any kind of weapons, and they had to be stored. And then they were brought through triage. Then they would go to wherever they needed to. If they had to go straight to surgery, they would go down to the PACU, and that's where they would prepare them. If they were medical, such as malaria or something like that, then they would go to one of the wards. We had a capacity of about 750, something like that, but we could expand another 500 or 600 up on the decks under the stars if we had to.
And did you ever get?
One night when we got 250 cases of immersion foot.
Yeah.
Which is, oh my gosh.
Yeah, they can't take their socks off when they get.
Oh yes, yeah. And so, that was, but I think we had some patients that we had up on the deck, but it was rare. Mm-hmm. But we had ICU, we had, kidney dialysis, we had all the different specialties. Right. The first ward that I worked on was the international ward. So we had a lot of patients. We had a plastic surgeon, Boxy Lehman. Boxy is doctor in Vietnamese. So he did a lot of cleft palates. And so for my first 2 or 3 months, I was on that ward. And
they were doing humanitarian things, right?
Yeah, but you had to deworm them. You had to delouse them, delouse them. I mean, we had a whole, protocol because we did not want to get other patients contaminated.
Right.
And on the same area was the urology ward. So I worked both the international ward and the urology ward. And that's, and then once you got a little bit more accustomed to all the different things, then I worked the medical wards, and we worked all 3 shifts. We, would work AMs, PMs, and nights, and it was just, just the way it was.
And they would have injured people coming in
day and night,
all the time, right?
Day and night.
Yeah, because that was there was a lot going on in Vietnam in '68.
Exactly. And then once we had the patients stabilized, when we had to transport them off, all the decks on the ship would be full of stretchers as they were getting ready to offload them, because we would stay up on station and then we'd go down to Danang and then we'd offload them, and then they would be transported to either naval hospitals in the theater outside Japan, Guam, Okinawa,
right,
or back to the States, depending on the condition. So.
Well, you're this young girl. You're just, almost turned 21, I think.
I turned 21
right?
when I was there.
But now you're seeing all this trauma, young men.
Yeah.
Like an overload, which you probably have never seen anything like this in your life.
No.
Did you start to think, okay, what's this all about?
We were so busy. We just kept so busy. And when we had any downtime, we wanted to party. Yeah. We wanted to get off, and we were fortunate. We were, because we were very few women in Vietnam at the time.
Right.
So the Marines would pick us up and take us for barbecues so we had some kind of a social life, but you didn't think a lot about it.
The political or the, the carnage. That's my main thing.
Yeah. It was unbelievable, some of the injuries. And on the medical wards,
because that's a hard thing.
Oh, yes.
I mean, not everybody can do that.
No, and I was glad I was in the medical wards and in urology ward and the Vietnamese, the international ward. I didn't want to go into ICU. I did not want to go into PACU or the OR at that time. That was just not something.
Right.
But it wasn't until later on, after coming back, that I realized how political everything had become.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were there to do a job. We were there to, do what needed to be done.
I get it.
The main thing is we were there to take care of the patients and to train the corpsmen, because a lot of the corpsmen that came on the ships would stay because they'd get extra money, and then they would go out in the field with the Marines, So we had to make sure that they were well prepared for whatever was going to happen.
Did you see any of those guys that you trained and then go out and then they come back as patients? Because they had a high rate of mortality.
Yeah. I don't remember any. No, not to my knowledge. We had a couple deaths on board the ship, but it was after they had gone and left, and we.
Yeah, because mainly if they make it to the ship, they've gotten through the most traumatic area and they're stabilized and they're probably going to make it at this point.
Exactly.
They've gone through the MASH aspect already.
But the medical ward was set up. It was 5 racks high. Wow. So if you were sick, you were on the bottom rack.
Yeah.
As you went up to the next one, you got a little bit better.
Yes.
And you went up to the next one and the next one and the next one. Well, my mother, being a good Catholic woman, did not want me in my uniform, which was a skirt.
Yes.
So she brought me the most beautiful pantaloons, and I wore all these pantaloons under my, and the guys were always going, look at it.
She climbed up to help them.
Well, yeah, because you had to, and sometimes you had patients on the second and third that had IVs because we had so many sick patients to take care of.
Right, yeah, because malaria was a big issue too.
Oh,
right?
yes. And we would draw the blood, we would test
smear
to figure out which kind it was. Yeah, everybody on board the ship, even the staff, we took the malaria pills because we did not want to get sick.
Yeah, you saw what it could do.
Right. And but we weren't always on station. The repose would be in Danang, and we'd be up, and then we'd trade places.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this, maybe every 2 or 3, 4 weeks. It just depended on how much was going on and how fast we would fill up, and we'd have to, offload them. But there was another hospital ship over there. It was a civilian hospital ship, the Helgoland.
Mm-hmm.
And she would be docked over on one side of the Danang Harbor. And Christmas Eve, we were all getting ready to go up because we were going to have Mass on the upper deck. And all of a sudden, the Helgoland was steaming out of the harbor. And we were all of a sudden weighing anchor and moving. They sent out a team to try to mine us.
Mm.
And that was exciting because here we were going one direction, and all of a sudden we were swinging around and we were heading
big
out.
Ship.
Yeah.
Quickly.
You don't move. It doesn't move very fast. The other thing is these ships were oil tankers,
right,
round-bottomed oil tankers that they converted into hospital ships.
Right.
And one morning we were coming, and then after that incident on in December, we did not stay in the harbor at night. We would go out and we'd steam up and down, and then in the morning we'd come in order to offload patients or bring on, because we had clinics that patients would come out for clinics and stuff like that. Well, it was maybe 6:30, 6:15 in the morning, and I was on the ward, and I was on the night shift, so I was waiting for us to do a turnover, and all of a sudden we started to move, and we started rocking to one side, and the patients in the bed, and Lieutenant JG, grab a pole. So I grabbed a pole, and what happened is we were coming in, and there were ground swells underneath that you can't see, and we went 16, 17 degrees one way.
Wow.
And then we went back 16 or 17 degrees.
So you're like right at the edge where you could flip it.
Yes, where we could go over. And the captain on the bridge, which we had two captains. We had a captain that was the ship's captain, and we had a captain who was the doctor who was the head of the hospital. And he turned white as his uniform. And if we would have gone a couple more degrees, we could have capsized. But we had a little bit of damage. We lost one little baby in one of the incubators, got flipped into the end. But most everything, we had a lot of.
That person didn't die.
No. Yeah. But we had a lot of, damage because we didn't have bags of fluid for IVs. They were bottles. Oh
yeah, so they would be breaking.
Yeah. So we had some damage, but. It was one of the scary incidents, and the CEO of the ship was he said, "Ooh, not fun." But we all recovered and moved on.
And so this was all on the ship, but you had at least one time go in and work in Vietnam too, right? Right. They decided the chief nurse of the Navy ship and the chief nurse of the Army hospital, the 95th Evac hospital, decided, wouldn't it be great if we had a collaboration, and one of your nurses would go out to the Army and one of the nurses would come to the ship. Right.
And so I spent 2 glorious weeks at the 95th Evac hospital.
Yeah.
And that was right in Danang. And it had barbed wire fence all around it. And they had the medics ran the fence at night. They were, so it was an experience. The nurse that went over to the ship didn't want to leave.
Yeah, I bet. Well, it's dangerous where you are, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't as busy as I thought it would be, but it was an interesting experience because they all were in different uniforms, and we didn't have. So I had to get uniforms to wear to go over there. So I would borrow them from Marines, So, I had to get a pair of boots, which I kept for like 25, 30 years. They were the most comfortable black boots, high top black.
I still have a pair.
Yeah. I think I finally threw them away, and when we moved from California here, but. When we would go out, we would do missions out to some of the small communities to do humanitarian missions to, help out. So we had to dress. We couldn't wear our white uniforms.
Right. Yeah,
our starched white uniforms.
Right.
Yeah. But some of the interesting things about the ship was we had a beauty salon, and we had one of the ship's company had been a beautician, and so he would come up and do the nurse's hair. So we also had the only bathtub in the whole fleet. Yeah. It was a blue bathtub. Yeah. And so we got to soak in the bathtub. We had to keep using the same water because we produced all our own water. It was a desalinization, so we had to be very careful. Yeah.
So we got a little brown toward the...
Yeah, towards the end. But we were on the upper level of the ship, right behind where the captains, the ship's captain and the hospital captain, Captain Aronson, and I can't remember the CO of the ship, Bishop. Yeah. But anyhow, they wanted to protect us because we were women.
Right?
Yeah. So
at a different time.
Yeah. So... and most of the nurses, there was, you had 2 people to a room. There was one room that had 3, and that was it. So we had 2 levels. I was on the upper level, and my roommate was the blood bank officer.
Mm-hmm.
So she was on call all the time because we went through so much blood. And so she kept very busy. And I got the top bunk, and the bunks had side rails, and the space was, maybe 10 by 10. And you had 2 closets, 2 desks, and 2 bunks and all your stuff.
Yeah.
So it was, tight. But it was the best sleep I ever got.
I bet, because you worked all day long, and then you got the
nice
shift,
lulling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the patients that were in there, the people that have been injured, did they look at it like, okay, I got a ticket out of here? Because I mean, that's a draft, and most people didn't want to be there voluntarily.
Some did, and we had 2 American Red Cross people on the ship that did all the ditty bags and put together, programs for them and wrote letters for them and had to, so we had a lot of things going on to try to, because some patients we'd have to keep for a while till we stabilized them, and then they would be flown out. But if you only had, a limited, injuries, and you were going to be discharged back to, the field. Side. No, to the field. Oh yeah. Yeah, so... there is that, right?
Right. And they're going back to their company. They're healed up. Just because you get shot or injured doesn't mean you're not going back.
Exactly. And so one of the duties of the night nurse on the medical ward was we had an area up in the bow of the ship that we had bunks so that if they couldn't make back to the, to Danang at night because it was too late, we had to go around and we had to count everybody's noses and figure out, because we knew how many we were supposed to have and how many. Well, I kept coming up one too many. Finally went down to the OD's desk and I said, there's a problem. I got somebody in there that doesn't belong. They found it was a guy that did not want to go back, and he kept moving from bunk to bunk every night. And I guess some of the other nurses didn't do as good a job counting. So he was basically doing everything in his power not to have to go back in the field. Exactly. And just trying to hang out there. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but it was interesting because we had all the different holidays. We would have cookouts up on the upper levels. We would do things to be as normal as possible. And at Christmas time, one of the somebody from Washington State sent the nurses a live Christmas tree. And we got it and we set it up in our quarters, and we tried to do as many things to make it as normal as possible. So we had a good time.
And you'd have maybe 500 patients at a
500-600
all the time.
Yeah.
And so you do this for a year, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of that time frame, do you have the option to stay and go longer?
No.
Or you have to.
Nurses were only allowed 1 year. The corpsmen were allowed to up for another year if they wanted, and they get paid extra money. But now, we weren't there on station all the time. We had to go into Subic Bay for refitting. And so when the repose would be there by itself, and then the sanctuary would go over to Subic Bay, because we had to get different things fixed on board the ship. They had to scrape the hull because you had, lots of barnacles and things like that. Right. So we would spend, it'd take 2 or 3 days to transit over to the Philippines. Then we'd be there for a week and a half. And we got to go to the swimming pool, and we got to go, do normal things because Subic Bay was a big base at the time. Yeah. So
I don't know. Is it not still a big one? I don't know.
No, we no longer have a base in Subic Bay.
Okay.
Got rid of it. And but we got to travel in the Philippines. We'd go up to Baguio, which was the mountain resort up there. We would go out into Olongapo, and on the little jeepneys and so we got to live somewhat of a normal life, so. And
so when you finish up,
do
you remember the last day or week when you were leaving?
Oh yeah. We were the ship was in Subic Bay for refitting. So, Jill Corbusier and myself were the 2 nurses that were leaving at the same time. So we were left in Subic Bay. So then we were going to fly out of Subic Bay to go back to the States.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jill decided, I hope nobody else sees this.
Oh, they will.
Jill decided that she wanted to take a souvenir home from the war.
Yeah.
And one of her Marine friends gave her a Russian AK-47. And she had it in her luggage. I did not know about it until we were getting ready to board the plane. And I said, oh, Lordy, what's going to happen? She got home with it, but we bought stuff, when we went to, when we had leave, I went to Japan and I went to,
you were getting the adventure you wanted as a 21-year-old.
Exactly. Yeah. It was an experience that, you never, some people you can't really explain it to them unless they've been there. And some of my best friends are still the nurses and
corpsmen.
Not so much the corpsmen, some of the doctors, but mostly the nurses and the Red Cross workers. Mm-hmm. Those were the people that, because we had to stick together as a group.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So.
Right. In some respect, your life depended on
it. Exactly. But, we had a deck up on the upper deck that we could go sunbathe on. And we tried to live as normal a life as possible, but it was an experience.
And it's a war zone.
Yeah. And we also had a radio station. So the nurses would do the weather every night. So we got to do the weather, and we tried to make it as normal as possible.
Right.
And we would have, people would send us box mixes for pizza. You can do a lot with an electric skillet and a popcorn popper.
Yeah.
We used to have gourmet meals.
I remember that being out in the field having a popcorn popper.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, we were fortunate. We had good food, but, you get tired of the same things over and over again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And we had lots of movies. We had an XO that loved cowboy westerns.
Yeah.
And so we would get couldn't we get something else?
Do you think that affected you at all on what you collect? Because you collect a lot of Western art,
I don't know. Movies was just fun because we go.
True, you do.
Yeah, we'd go and get popcorn and we'd sit in the wardroom and watch the movies and we'd laugh and we'd play cards.
Yeah, you'd feel normal.
Yeah, and wrote home. Sent huge numbers of letters home to my family. And they were extremely supportive.
I'm sure they were worried.
Yes.
The things on TV at that time, and I remember was all that was live coverage of people getting killed.
Exactly. And we went out into Vietnam a number of times and were caught in interesting situations where we were, and you never went up to any child coming down a road because you did not know if they had mined or had booby trapped them. Yeah. And so we stayed away from, unless we were in an area that we knew, we would go out and eat, I had chicken feet for the first time in my life in Vietnam. But, the Vietnamese people were some of the most wonderful and supportive because we were there to try to help them. And, it wasn't until a lot later that I realized what damage we did to that country. And we could have won that war, but we weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part.
Have you been back to Vietnam?
Nope.
Have you ever thought about going back?
One of the Navy nurses, she takes tours over there. No, I think because I have memories and I don't know if I'd want to go over there again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And when you come back,
and
you finally do come home, you had a completely different experience.
Oh, right? Yes. I got orders to go to San Diego Naval Hospital. And so Balboa.
Yep.
And so I came through Travis Air Force Base. We came in the late evening, and then I had to get a shuttle bus from Travis down to San Francisco International Airport, and we had to travel in uniform. And I got to the building to go in, get checked in, and it was not a pleasant experience because of the fact that San Francisco was really anti-war.
Yeah.
And I was spit on. And so I said, I think I'm going to go do something. So I went into the ladies' room, took off my covers, tucked it into my bag, took all my devices off, took my tie off, and just, made it look like I was in a black raincoat.
Yeah.
And I went to the gate and I sat there and, I got home and my mother, and then I started to realize what had really happened and the flavor of what was going on and within the nation itself. And there was such controversy, such, unrest. And even getting to San Diego, a lot of things that, I thought MASH was the funniest thing that was ever produced.
The movie. Yeah.
Yes. And I laughed. The other nurses were doing, what do you mean? I said, you haven't been there. I mean, you had to have humor. Humor kept you going.
Right.
You needed to have some release.
Right.
And, a lot of things I don't remember about Vietnam because we have a tendency to suppress it.
Yes.
The bad things.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure there was plenty of them.
That's right. But it was interesting. One of the Veterans Day when they dedicated the women's statue at the Vietnam Memorial. We marched in the parade, all in uniform. There was like 7 or 8 of us that were on board the ship that all came together, and we had, we stayed at my friend's house, and it was like one big pajama party. And then we went and did the march, and then we went over for the dedication. And while I was there, a gentleman came up to me and he says, "You were a nurse on the ship." I said, "Okay." He said, "You took care of me." Now that's yeah.
Yeah. What did that make you feel like? I can see it in your face right now.
Oh yeah, it made me think I was there for a reason and I did what was right.
Yeah, that's right.
It's hard, but I look back at my experiences. I think it made me the person I am today.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. On many levels.
Oh yeah. And you do what you have to do. And I think it also prepared me for my other duty stations because I was in San Diego for a little over a year, and I'm coming back to the dream sheet. Remember that? Well,
right.
One of the places I put on the dream sheet was Keflavik, Iceland, because my friend Claire Ann said, "Oh, I've been there, and it's a great duty station." So okay, I'll put Keflavik.
And it was a great duty station.
The thing was,
you met Jeffrey.
Yes,
there, right?
I met. Yeah, the thing was that one of the nurses had gotten orders to go to Keflavik. And for some reason or another, she couldn't go because another nurse was supposed to go to Newfoundland. So they took her and put her in Newfoundland, and they called me up and said, "You want to go to Iceland?" I said, "Okay." And off I went to Iceland. So, things happen for a reason. So the 2 places I put on my dream sheet, I got.
Yeah.
You didn't get any, but I got it.
0. And I put in some really ones that I didn't think anybody would want.
Yeah.
It was just surprising I wouldn't get them. I wanted to be in like remote areas that most people wouldn't want.
Yeah. But I loved Keflavik. It was a beautiful country. The people were warm. It was a great duty station. It was a small hospital. There were about 17 or 18 nurses there. We had a charge nurse that was the DNS, and the nurse that ran the OR was the anesthesiologist. So she, nurse anesthetist. So she took care of the corpsmen in there, and well, she had an emergency that she had to be sent back to the States, and so I had said, well, I'll be happy to learn the OR. So the 2 corpsmen, 2 HM2s, taught me everything I needed to know about the OR. I had learned about CSR when I was down in Jacksonville because I was banished for a while because I was dating a corpsman.
Oh, yeah.
Bad. Yeah. And so they banished me to the CSR in Corpus Christi. And Bev Sparks ran the OR there. She taught me everything I needed to know. I worked 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. So that wasn't a bad deal for me.
Right.
But the chief nurse thought that was banishment for me. So anyhow, so with that background and, learning the OR up in Iceland, that was fine with me. I loved working in the OR. And so We didn't do a lot of cases. We did a lot of C-sections because we had a lot of babies up there.
Yes.
And if it was a case that could be done there, they would do it. But if not, they would be medevac back to the States. So, that's just the way it was, because we had a surgeon and we had, a couple OBGYNs and, so it wasn't a big hospital.
And at this point, were you considering making the military your career?
Yes.
But that changed at some point. I mean, you did make it your career.
I put in to be regular Navy, and
right.
I did, So,
yeah. And for people listening, she was a captain.
My final rank was captain. When I was up in Iceland, I got my 2 bars, so I was a lieutenant. Yeah. And then, we were there for a year, and Jeffrey was deployed with a squadron from Pax River, New Jersey. They were deployed up to Iceland. They were on the sub-chasers, the P3s.
Yeah.
And they were deployed there for 3 months at a time. And then another squadron would come up. And then we also had Air Force squadrons from Washington and other places that would come in, because it was a NATO base. And so there was planes coming in and out, and it was a trip as you're going across the northern part and then into Europe. So it was a stopover point for a lot of things. And it was a great place. I met a lot of interesting Air Force people, because there were Air Force people that were stationed up there and their families. So, we had a great commissary. We had DOD teachers up there. So we had a basketball league up there with the nurses and the teachers, and I mean, it was a great place to be stationed. Cold, dark for most of the. I came in October. It was pitch black, and I left. It was pitch black, but the people were wonderful. I got to see a lot of Iceland. Loved the fact that it was still a whaling station, and I actually got to go see everybody else sat in the bus, and Anne was the only one out there looking. But were you looking at art at all then? Had that? Some things, mostly because they did a lot of pottery and things like that,
folk art kind of
stuff. But not really. It wasn't until really to California that I really started really looking and started. And then Jeffrey, we both have a lot of the same feelings about art and what we like and what we don't like. So that.
And what do you like and what you don't like?
I like Western, but I also like landscapes, and I love watercolors. Don't have any watercolors, but but when we were starting to learn about art in California, we would go and spend hours at the galleries and talk with the people at the galleries, and they would tell us about the different artists, and and we would go to Monterey a lot. We would go to San Francisco, so we got to be exposed to all different kinds.
And it was really the gallery owners that really propelled you into
the owners
this.
or the people that worked there that would spend time with us.
Yes.
And at that time, Monterey had a huge number of galleries.
Yeah, they did.
Both, contemporary and and deceased.
Yeah, they had a lot of historic California art.
Yes, and I still get emails from a couple of galleries, and a lot of the stuff we bought from, certain people down at the galleries. And, when we've been back, we go and they're still there. So,
right.
Yeah. So, but, we didn't really get into more the classic Western art until we got to Tucson.
Why do you think that is that you got into it when you came here?
Well, it was more the cowboy, the scenes, Old West, that type of stuff. Most of the other stuff that we collected was landscapes and, California feeling. But, and we found out about the museum, and one of the people said, oh, you should come to, the Western Art Patrons. And so we joined the museum, and then we joined the Western Art Patrons. And then we started getting more and more introduced into the yellow slickers and that type. But it was all of the different Western art. I like contemporary Western art.
Yeah, you have Logan.
Oh,
you
yes.
have Ed Mel, you have
Exactly.
Howard Post,
Exactly.
You have all these.
Exactly. But
and I would assume part of it too was just the fellowship that you would have with other people, right?
Exactly. And we got to meet the Hamiltons and the Louise and Jim. I mean, people that had been here and meeting you and Kathleen and coming in and seeing the art, deceased art, Maynard Dixon. Living in San Francisco, I really didn't know Maynard Dixon, but I learned a lot since we've moved here, which has been wonderful. And we started out going to your gallery up on Tanque Verde and Sabino Canyon, and you were in that whole big area. Oh yeah, and learning about art, learning about the artists. And
meeting them, right?
Exactly.
You got to intimately meet almost all of these artists.
I think every piece of contemporary art that we've met.
Yes.
We've met the artists.
How important do you think that is?
Oh, it makes a connection with the piece.
Yes.
It really does connect you.
Yes. Because I think it is really important that artists go to shows and meet patrons and meet the individuals, because it does give you a sense of that person intimately, and they can also explain their art and maybe the way they're seeing it or feeling it that you can relate to and you build a bond. I think.
And the other thing that the Western art patrons did was they had trips.
Yes. We took some together.
Yes. And going on the trips, 4, 5, 6 day trips. We went to, the first trip we went to was Santa Fe, which was phenomenal. We got to meet Billy Shank, which was amazing, and Rebecca.
Shout out to Billy and Rebecca.
Yeah. And we got to see Alan Hauser's compound. We got to see galleries. It's just unbelievable. And then we were able to go, part of being on the trip is going into artist studios and actually spending time and having them tell you their philosophy of, how they got into it. And so then we went to Santa Fe. Then we went to the Texas Hill Country, which was phenomenal. Then we've been on.
Did you do Oklahoma City?
No, we missed that one. I went on that one.
Yeah, that was very good.
And we did and we also missed the one to Montana and Wyoming. But we've been on practically every other trip that's been.
Yeah, even as an art dealer, and I have some of these connections already, I still find it interesting.
Oh, because you get a chance to talk to these people.
Yeah.
And you get to meet their families, and you get to meet their dogs.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. And most people that buy art, may not have that opportunity to meet the artist and to know what are they thinking about when they're putting together their.
Well, you also joined the MO Club, right?
Right.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we were. Well, we didn't think we could join because we weren't a rancher, and met somebody from my Rotary Club that says, "Oh no, they're looking for people that are interested in Western art."
Right.
And we got sponsored, and so we were brought into the MO Club, which is, one of the unbelievable collections. And half of it, 3/4 of it's not even out. But the club has got different levels of membership. They have junior members. They have artist members. They have the active members. They have people that are only here part of the year. And then they have the ranchers.
Real cowboys.
Real cowboys. Because the club started in the basement of a hotel in Tucson, Jack Goodman.
Right.
And then it moved, and now it's in the final location, and the artwork is phenomenal. And it's fun to take people that don't know about Western art and actually get to see things. And they have a great art show once a year in November. So.
And for those people that don't know, it's a club. It's a private art club, basically.
Exactly.
Art and ranch and cowboy that is filled with amazing Western art.
That all the artist members have to donate a piece in order to come into the club, and Weghorst. I mean, there's just
Howard Post.
Howard Post. I don't know if they have a Billy Shank.
No, because I don't think he's a member. Yeah. But Howard's a member.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And then they also have food and things like this. It's just a very special place that, you know, if you get an invitation, and it's a way to build, again, a sense of community.
Exactly.
Around Western culture.
And it's been a part of this community for a very long time.
How long? Do you know? I don't even know.
They're celebrating their 62nd anniversary.
Yeah, that's a rare thing in any city.
Exactly.
You know, it's like a rodeo, the 98th year.
Exactly.
You know, we do have things in Tucson specifically that really do embrace Western and Native arts as well.
Yeah. And, you know, it's a wonderful place to go to have a meal. They have a great bar. You know, it's fun to, you know, take people there that come in from out of town. You know?
Right. And then you also did things like go to the booth. You went to the gala twice, I think, right?
Yes. We were fortunate that Seth called us up and said, we got seats on the plane. You want to go? And we didn't have to think long and hard in order to go.
So you get to go to these other places that...
Yes.
And the Booth Museum is in Cartersville, Georgia, which is one of the finest Western art museums of any place in the country.
Oh, it is.
You have Seth Hopkins, who is the director, and it's just an amazing place. They have a big gala every February.
Right.
And, you know, because you got involved in this community, all of a sudden now you're flying out to Georgia to go to support another museum.
Yeah, and we're fortunate here in Arizona not only to have, you know, museum here, but in Phoenix, the new museum, the Spirit of the West.
Yes.
And we're members of that. We're members of, you know, the Arizona State Museum here. So we have become involved and we really appreciate not only the Western art, but the Native American art, the tapestries, the blankets, the, you know, things like that, the baskets, the casinas. I mean, we have broadened our collection to include a lot of things that we did not have in California just because it was there, but it was not something that we were, you know,
exposed to.
Exactly. And it wasn't until we came to Tucson that we learned about the weavings and the baskets and jewelry. And jewelry.
Oh, I know. Yeah, which you love.
Yes.
And you have a wonderful collection.
A wonderful collection of the Patania jewelry.
Yes.
And others.
But I think, you know, again, it's that you've done this in, you know, a short 20 years. You have become exceptionally knowledgeable in artists, jewelry, you know, Navajo rugs, all this stuff. Supported artists, contemporary artists, a lot of contemporary artists. And some deceased, but a lot of contemporary. And it's possible to do these things in a short period of time if you just have the interest and exposure.
Exactly. And the other thing is we got into the weavings, and we were fortunate enough to go down to Steve Getzweiler's ranch who was the director of the museum? Oh, my brain is addled. Robert Knight, who was the director of the museum, got us into that, and so there was a weaving group that we would go down there, you know, once or twice.
I remember when that was. So you would learn more.
Exactly, and every time you go someplace, you have to learn. You have to I took notes because, you know, there's just so much information.
Right.
It's like drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. So you have, and Jeffrey seems to remember a lot more, but we've also gotten
he is very interested in this stuff.
But we've also gotten a huge collection of books on different subjects. And so we have, you know, quite a few, and it's fun to sit down and go through you know, and some of the things that you've written, you know, on Maynard Dixon and all the things that we've been able to come to the gallery and be participate in has also increased our knowledge. So it's been very beneficial. And we've met a lot of the artists that are not only, you know, doing Western art, but, you know, like Shirley Wagner and some of the other artists that are up and coming, like Josh.
Yeah. Josh Gibson, and others. And that's the fun of it. You know, to me, I feel like art has really taken hold in your heart.
Oh, yeah.
and now is such an important part of your life. Not only your life, but what you're going to leave legacy-wise too.
Yeah, exactly.
In the arts.
And it's kind of funny because I don't know if this is, how most families are, but my family, they appreciate it, but they're not interested in it.
Right.
Now, my sister, her husband, he was a mammologist, and he collected a lot of photographs, animal photographs, and has a huge collection. But but she's not very interested in the Western art. My brother is not interested. So I think what we're going to have to decide what we're going to do with all the things that we have.
Right. But you'll find that.
Oh yeah.
And because of your close relationship with all these different organizations and
museums. Exactly.
They love people like you. Great collection. Know what they're doing. Bought good stuff and don't have any kids.
Yeah. That's true. But we've been fortunate that we've had some dinner parties through cafe or dinner a la art through the Tucson Museum of Art.
Right.
That you came and spoke to us about weavings and things like that, where you really are introducing people to a lot of different perspectives of art.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you think art has changed your world? At least the way you see it, maybe.
It makes me think about what the artist is trying to say and how they're portraying it in their paintings and the colors they use and the shadowing and things like that I never really thought about before. Even when I was doing my drawing, it was very basic compared to what, but talking to the artist and we have a piece from Fritz.
Shoulder or Fritz? Charlie Fritz.
And he told us the whole story behind it. And those are the kind of things that I love that you have. Oh, okay, this was an old farm, and they go through and they tell you, I was there during the day and I, took photographs and you learn about how the artist, portrays the pieces and what they do, what their process is to get from seeing it to actually producing a piece. Yeah.
You think you could have been an artist? I mean, you clearly have the inclination of drawing when you're a kid.
Most of my artistry is in cooking.
Well, that's true. And that is an art, and you're a fabulous cook.
And my candy making and my cookie making. Yes. That is my artistic reality. Yeah.
You think you could have done that?
Not as a business, no.
What as a chef, though?
No. You think nursing is hard. Being a chef is even harder. I enjoy it because I love to do it and then I love to give it away.
I was going to say, you like the sharing part.
Oh, yes. I'm a cancer. Yeah. And that is just part of my...
And you were a nurse, too, which is very empathy.
That's all part of the whole process. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
To me is the process of making it and then sharing it and people enjoying it.
Yeah. I know our gallery is always loves it, even though, somewhere I actually have a little bit of the banana thing right here. Yeah. I took it and just snuck it in here. So that's on many levels. With this many people, that was me hitting something. With many people, and we have in this gallery, it has a tendency to go away very quickly.
Yeah, I need to get back into baking. It's been a challenging time over the past few months. So, we're moving forward and I think I'm getting back into it. It's just, life throws you curveballs and you have to pick them up It
does. Yeah. And you just have to learn how to, it's the way life is.
That's right. That's right.
It's like being on that ocean. A lot of times it's very placid and lovely.
And then all of a sudden it can be a rip-roaring
that
typhoon.
Big wave comes in that almost flips your ship.
Yeah, that's right.
Or sometimes it does flip the ship.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's even worse. Yeah. So, I understand that.
But, after I got out of the Navy, I was in Jacksonville, which was my last duty station, on active duty. And I decided I wanted to go back to school. And when I was in San Diego, I loved going to a lot of the places around there, the animal, what was the SeaWorld.
Yeah.
I would go down and volunteer and we would feed the animals and that kind of stuff. And I thought, maybe I'll be a marine biologist. Till I found out 13 years later.
Yeah.
And, subspecialty.
Yeah. That's
and I was thinking about, cetaceans, which are mammals. But I said, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So when we got out of the Navy, we needed to figure out what we were going to do in life. Jeffrey was going back to school, and he was going to become a marine oceanographer.
Yeah.
And so he went to University of South Florida, and they had their marine campus. And I needed to do something, and I thought, well, let me see what's available. And so we were going through the hall trying to figure out what classes I was going to take. And there was a science course, a geology course, and they said, "Oh, come take this. It's, it'll be your credits that you need to
right.
do." I said, "Okay, I'll take a geology." I loved it. It was it was interesting. There was a lot to do. I loved rocks. I loved being outdoors. So I got a degree in geology and left the mammals behind. Mm-hmm. And then once we finished up our schooling, then Jeff got a job in Menlo Park as an oceanographer with the U.S. Geological Survey, and we drove across country. And I said, "Oh, well, what am I going to do now? I got a degree in geology, so let's see." So I went to Anderson, and I was still in the Naval Reserve, so right. I still had that component. So I decided, well, I'll go to the USGS in Menlo Park and see if somebody needs, a geologist or a technician. So I got hired on as a technician and worked my way all the way up through technician. I went to an operational geologist, a research geologist. Then I went into HR, science, administration. Right. So, I had a career that, another whole complete career. And I retired from the survey. When I moved down here, I was here for 4 or 5 years in 2009, and I retired from the Navy in 1999 after 36-year career. So I've had many careers, yes. And I've had many paths, and yes. Things intertwine. But it's been
well. That's what you do with your life. You only get one of it,
and so I'm living it to the fullest.
And you're not done.
Yeah, and now I'm not as interested in doing the traveling. I'm more interested in the interactions with people and the friends, mm-hmm. and that kind of thing. Yeah. And the art.
Yeah.
And the art. Yeah.
Well, Anne, I appreciate you coming.
Oh, thank you.
I've always wanted to I've had many conversations, but not the same.
No, it's
nice
different.
To hear
yeah.
Oh, and let's just say there's a book that she's actually on the cover on, which is out shortly.
It is out. It is
completely out, which is the Vietnam War Nurses at the Ready. I actually read your chapter and plan on reading the whole book, but that is just out, and this is by Patricia Rushton.
There are 17 nurses, all from the Vietnam era, that were either stateside or overseas or on the ships. And this is the 5th book that Pat has put together. Mm-hmm. And so she, contacted me, and about, maybe 10 years ago, I said, I should write down what I did and how I got from point A to point B.
Right.
And so I had pretty well written about 10 or 12 pages. And then she asked me to expand on it. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm working with this publishing company, and I'd like to get so I sat down and I put more information in, and then she came back to me and she said, well, they want to know a little bit more about, what kind of controversies occurred and what, and any, contention. And so that's when I started thinking back about, when I got back from Vietnam and, other things that had happened, and how the Vietnam veterans were never really welcomed home.
No, they weren't.
No,
really weren't.
They weren't. And this year, just recently, they had a big welcome home party in D.C. And I was getting a lot of emails, but they were trying to, welcome home people from Vietnam. And it's, it's been 50 years. 50 years.
I know at least one of my friends who was treated like you were, and it really affected him. It really kind of caused him a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still does, but it surprised me.
I think back about a lot of stuff, and, like anytime you have a trauma, you can suppress things. And,
Oh, yeah.
And if I sit and think about stuff, I can come back with, what happened. But we remember the good times. We remember when Bob Hope came to the ship,
Yeah.
And
did he?
Oh, yeah. He was there. He brought his whole entourage on the ship.
What was that like?
It was amazing. It was amazing. We had a patient that was in the ICU and was in kidney failure. I'm going to cry about this one. After Bob Hope visited, he started, his kidneys started functioning. So
yeah, who knows, man? Comedy and
he was.
You get the will to live.
Exactly.
And there is a truth into that.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
And we got visits from the generals and all the. They wanted to see Bob Hope. They wanted to, they wanted. And we also, they loved having the nurses come around and the Red Cross workers and, giving them ditty bags and, giving, and having, songs and dances, things like that to make it as normal as possible. So this book is really, I haven't read all of the, I think I know every nurse except for one. Mm-hmm. And she was on the repose, and I don't know if she was there before I was there or after. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to have to sit and read them all. But I read through mine.
Yeah, it must be interesting to read that because you have empathy and can relate to what they're doing. Yeah. And every struggle is kind of the same in a weird way.
Oh, yeah.
You're dealing with that.
It was really interesting when they were getting ready to deploy the two new ships, the two new hospital ships, the USNS Mercy and the Comfort during the Iraq War. It was, they brought in a lot of the nurses that were in the reserves to fill the spots while the active duty were shipped off to and we said, I think you ought to spend some time preparing these nurses for what is going to happen over there.
Right.
What kind of, horrible conditions and horrible things that, it's being in a trauma hospital is one thing, but being on a battlefield is entirely different things.
Yes.
And they kind of poo-pooed us. And we said, okay, and not long after they came back, you were right. It would have helped us if we would have had somebody could have prepared. Well, we told you so, but you wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
And it was always the joke with the reserves was they're going to leave the keys on a hook and we're going to come in and we did. They deployed practically all the people in the hospital, all the corpsmen, all the doctors, the nurses, the dentists.
Right.
Everybody went except for the ones that were ineligible because of medical conditions and stuff. And they only brought in 2/3 of what they deployed. Mm-hmm. But we got rid of every backlog in every clinic. The patients loved it and then the other people came back and where's my other nurse? I liked her. So, because most of the people in the reserves were on active duty, but also worked in the civilian community. Yeah. And, time is money. Yeah. And, you have to, take care of patients in the most efficient and effective way possible, giving them the best medical care, but you have to.
Right.
So, it was very interesting. And I think the military, has learned some lessons, but I think they haven't learned them well enough. And since I've been out of the Navy for, almost 24 years, I don't have much of an affiliation with the Navy, except for the Navy Nurse Corps Association. And also I still do interviews because if you're going to come into the Nurse Corps, you have to have a Nurse Corps officer do your interviews. So I do interviews. One of the other nurses that lives here in Arizona, in Tucson, she and I do interviews. And so we do them over the phone and we, and so that's about all that I have with the Navy now. The Navy's changed. Everything's changed. So I don't know. I don't know if I've even fit in.
Recognize it. I'm sure it's completely different.
It is. I think it really is.
Well, for one thing, they have computers now.
Listen, we did not have computer, later on, but everything was done
all by hand.
And you had to learn how to take notes and, all that stuff. Yeah.
It's different skills.
Because everything, if it wasn't documented, it wasn't done.
It wasn't real.
It wasn't done. That's right. That's right.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Which have helped me tremendously in the art field because I'm very
detail oriented.
Detailed oriented. I'm very important with contracts and different things.
Oh yeah.
And I make sure everything is accounted for and signed, and there's I can't lose anything because it's all documented.
And the same thing with with my career in the U.S. Geological Survey. I mean, detail,
Yes.
and
it helps you tremendously in any profession.
Yeah. And the other thing is, being in the military, you have a sense of purpose, you have a sense of pride, and duty. And you're there until the job's done.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's very true.
And we would be on call if especially in overseas duty stations, because you didn't have the huge staff that you'd have in a stateside hospital or a teaching hospital. And now that's all changed. The Navy used to have 4 or 5 big teaching hospitals, and now they're down to so military medicine has changed dramatically. It's now a lot more purple, as we say, instead of navy blue and Air Force. So which is, I think, in some respects is good. They've also gone to we did 8-hour shifts, and now it's 12-hour shifts, and I'll tell you, I don't think I could do 12-hour shifts now.
I was on call every third day.
Exactly. It's not.
They were very long.
No.
Yeah.
But medicine has changed.
I like art better. I'll
do
take art.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Anne.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was fun.
Don't forget your bracelet, or I'll take it with me.
I won't.
Anne Gartner, thank you so much for your friendship and for spending time.
Thank you.
Artila Diaries.